and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about histamine, which is a molecule that is created in the body, and how this could actually offer hope for helping us to recover from multiple sclerosis. If we haven't met, my name is Pam Bartha, and I'm the author of Become a Wellness Champion and the founder of Live Disease Free. I have been studying multiple sclerosis for over 35 years now because I was diagnosed with MS 35 years ago. By the grace of God and a lot of work on my part, I learned early on that the multiple sclerosis that I was suffering with is caused by chronic infections in the body, a chronic parasitic infestation. And so I have been on a mission because I recovered. I've been able to live an amazing, full, active life for 35 years now. And my passion is to help others to recover also. My passion is to help bring change, to bring all of the wisdom from medical doctors and different researchers that really were on the right track to helping people recover, trying to find a cure. Many years ago, a lot of their research has been lost, and I'm resurrecting it, bringing it back to life. And today we're going to talk about histamine because there's so much talk these days about histamine intolerance and mast cell activation disorder. So histamine has a really bad reputation right now in the integrative field. But what the research is actually showing is that it could potentially help to modulate the inflammation that's going on in multiple sclerosis, and that would really help us to heal. So again, I have been able to live MS-free, and many others are doing the same thing, but they're doing it differently. They're not living with disease. They're not taking maintenance pharmaceuticals that will just suppress their immune system. They're actually treating the root cause. So I will share lots of all of that in a minute, but first I wanted to just talk about histamine. So if any of you have allergies or your loved ones have allergies, you might think about histamines as, they cause the runny eyes and the sneezing and the runny nose. And they're really prevalent, like in allergy season, they're really rearing their head in allergy season, where our body is responding to things that it shouldn't respond to, like pollen, and could be different foods that we're allergic to that we shouldn't be allergic to. And so it is a reaction of the immune system, and the immune system is producing histamine. So it's a natural molecule that's produced by our body, and it's really its main job, it's produced when we have infections or when we have injury. And yes, it could be also when we have allergens like pollen, but that's not a normal thing for our immune system to respond to. Like most people are not allergic to pollen. There might be a few that are allergic to pollen, but most people are not. So why are we not thinking about, okay, so if there's increased histamine in the brain or in the spinal fluid of MS, then could there be infection there? Because that's one of the main jobs, because it's there to defend us from pathogens, from parasites, so different bacteria, protozoa, larvae of worms, and fungi. And the histamine is like part of the immune response to pathogens. So that's there to help in the defense against different disease-causing microbes, but also to dilate blood vessels. So that brings in, different white blood cells and different immune cytokines and different things to help in this fight. It's kind of like helping to promote a war to go against different microbes that would make us sick, especially in the central nervous system that we're talking about today. So again, dilating blood vessels to help immune cells reach the site of infection, regulating gut function, sleep, and even brain activity. I was just thinking, if you follow my work, you know more about inflammation, about the cause of MS, about all of this science. I try to keep it really simple, but you know far more than your neurologist, probably than your general practitioner, probably more even than integrative practitioners, because a lot of what I'm sharing is not the norm. They're all talking about, oh, histamine is bad, and make sure you're staying away from high histamine foods, and it's all linked with allergies, and there's, again, the mast cell activation disorder. And why are our mast cells so active? I wonder if we have a parasitic infestation that our healthcare professionals are not able to see because they don't have good tests, and that is the case. So they also trigger the start of tissue repair and healing. So histamines are really important. Everything in our body, our immune cells are really important. We do not want to destroy them. We do not want to get rid of them. We do not want to, we don't want to treat histamine as a total villain. If maybe there's too much present, we need to look at, okay, how can we modulate? How can we support the immune system? How can we take the pressure off so it does not have to go to war as strongly? So yes, while too much histamine in the wrong place could cause problems, it's also part of our body's built-in defense and healing system that keeps us alive. Really important to know that. So in multiple sclerosis, where our immune system is constantly fighting these hidden infections, they're not hidden from the body, but they're hidden from scientists for some reason. And they are, by the time we have MS and other neurological diseases, they're actually located in the central nervous system. So histamine has been found to be elevated in certain parts of the body, especially in the central nervous system with multiple sclerosis. So a 2022 study, they discovered that histamine promotes remyelination. So this is totally opposite of all of the nasty things you're hearing about histamine. Histamine promotes remyelination. It helps specialized cells, the ones that are important for helping to rebuild myelin. They help them to mature and to function properly. So this is all science. It's not me making it up. I always give you the references in our blog post, and you'll get that with the newsletter as long as you're on our list. So make sure to go to livediseasefree.com, and there you can look to see my masterclass training. You can put your name and email for that, but then also we will send you my the blog post and also the edited video. So it's shortened, and you can share that with your practitioners. You can start to do some research and start to take a different path, a path that actually leads to recovery, not to living with disease. So again, histamine promotes remyelination. Histamine levels have been often seen this is in studies, in the spinal fluid of MS patients. So that really suggests if you have more histamine in your central nervous system, and that's part of your body's natural defense against infections, it would make sense because we know that MS is an inflammatory disease. We know that the immune system is fighting something in the central nervous system, and we know that it is not fighting our own cells, because if that were the case, people could not recover, and many of us have recovered. When you treat the parasites, your immune system can actually settle down because it doesn't have to fight. It's like your soldiers, you've helped to get rid of the enemy, and your soldiers can then kind of go, the crisis is over. We can just do our normal surveillance, and that is common sense. So histamine levels are elevated in the spinal fluid of MS, and I've seen in this research that it's reduced in the blood of multiple sclerosis patients, showing that histamine activity is more, it's complex, but it's all common sense. And then there's this enzyme, which is HNMT, and this enzyme, it breaks down histamine in the brain. So they're finding that in MS patients, that there are higher levels of this enzyme that breaks down histamine. So of course, if you have higher histamine than normal, and the immune system is using that to fight, your body wants to regulate the histamine too. They don't want too much, definitely elevated. And so this enzyme is going to be decreasing the histamine in the brain. So this may be blocking histamine's ability to repair damage. That's one theory that they were thinking, because they're just talking about it like, why is this enzyme elevated and why is histamine elevated, and like just trying to make sense of all of it. They found 3 drugs that could possibly help to rebalance histamine. One of them is actually a malaria drug. That is amodiaquine, or amodiaquine, I think quine. And that is a drug that treats malaria. And if you have been following my work, I have a 6-part series on how there's at least 75 studies dating back to the early or late 1800s, early 1900s, linking multiple sclerosis with a malaria or Babesia type protozoa infection. Like, quite shockingly, like all that research just dropped, right? So it's interesting how there's a certain malaria drug that is really helpful. And then there are a couple of others. You'll have the names of these in my blog post. It is rapidine, and then also the generic, the active ingredient for Benadryl. So these really stood out for repurposing for MS, and they interact with histamine systems and they help restore balance in the brain. We know that Benadryl can be helpful if that's all that we have, and that's something that's really simple to find. Make sure you check with your doctor. This is not medical advice. It's just that we have found with our students that it's safe for them to take it, that Benadryl can help them to sleep. It also helps sedate the larger worms, and it helps to control the inflammation. So we don't take away the inflammation, but it just helps to control it. And interesting, doctors, when they're treating a parasitic infestation, they will give their patients a shot of Benadryl to help quiet down the parasites while they're being treated, because they react to parasite treatments. That it's like a angry worm syndrome, and they don't like it, and so they can react to it and they can give us more symptoms, and that's why they give Benadryl. Also, when we're having an infusion of our disease-modifying drugs, they give steroids and a Benadryl, or the active ingredient of Benadryl, and that again is to help manage the inflammation, for sure, the steroid, but the Benadryl will definitely make the parasites less active, will control inflammation. Interesting how all these things are interconnected, isn't it? So what makes this so exciting is that I've got lots to share with you today, but this study is exciting for several reasons. Number one, that one malaria drug, amodiaquine, that one is interesting because that's more evidence that, maybe some people with MS, many of us are dealing with a chronic cerebral protozoa that's infecting our central nervous system. And the research shows that. Maybe your blood work shows that. You can see changes in your red blood cells, like decrease the red blood cell count. You can see changes in the MCV, the MCHC, like all of those different red blood cell type test results, and you get those. So that can be another indication. And I've done a 6-part series on that, so you just go and watch. Actually, the shortest is just to go to our blog post, look for MS and malaria, live disease-free. You'll see the 6-part series. Really fascinating how much research. Doctors were actually treating MS patients with malaria drugs back in the early 1900s, having incredibly wonderful improvements in like some of them were almost virtually symptom-free, which is crazy. So that's another big clue. And so this drug that they found, that they're kind of taking it more at the angle like it's helping to manage the histamine, but actually what the purpose of this amodiaquine is to that it works at binding the DNA of the malaria parasites and stopping them from making RNA and proteins. And this kills them and it stops the infection. So that's how it is an anti-malaria drug. And then, so this is really huge because it really links this histamine regulation and anti-parasitic action directly as the underlying cause of multiple sclerosis. So it's not that I've given you one piece of evidence, I've given you so much evidence where different researchers are actually finding parasites in the central nervous system, which types of parasites they're finding, and like lots of them, like worms and developing tapeworm, and also tapeworm larvae and Borrelia, and also this plasmodium, which is like it could be malaria, it could be babesia or something similar that infects our red blood cells. So there's all of these like hundreds of scientific papers. Why is the expert panel that dictates how MS is diagnosed and treated around the world, why are they not interested in looking at any of this? Why are they like, we know that there's lesions in MS. We know that there could be antibody bands if we look at under the lumbar puncture test results, but we're not interested in knowing why they're there. If they're there, we can just use these immunosuppressive drugs for patients. We don't care what's causing it. How can you cure something when you aren't looking for the cause? Really important. How can you cure something when you have been doing the same thing for decades? You're like, when I was diagnosed with MS, it was immunosuppressive, prednisone. Nothing has changed. We're focusing on our immune cells, the B cells, the T cells, and this has been decades later. For me, it's like 35 to 40 years later. That's when I was diagnosed, like over 36 years ago. So when you keep doing the same thing and you get the same result for decades and decades, is that not the definition of insanity? What do you guys think? Honestly, like, tell me what you think, because it drives me crazy. Again, like, if you want to look at the research that I have shared, go to our Live Disease Free blog post. It is a library of things that you're not going to find anywhere else. Today, I'm going to give you some like incredible things that have been lost on top of what I've already shared with you. So again, this is a really huge discovery because it's linking histamine regulation and anti-parasitic action directly as the underlying cause of multiple sclerosis. And even more compelling is the growing research that MS is an infectious disease. And I, again, look at the malaria, because today we're talking about this, and malaria can definitely cause this really strong immune reaction. It can cause strong Herx reactions. And we talk about malaria because we know it's a protozoa. And I don't know that, like, there's different species of malaria, but then also Babesia is another protozoa. They both infect red blood cells. So it could be a different protozoa, but it is some type of protozoa that responds to malaria drugs, and it infects the red blood cells. The red blood cells. It makes them sick, makes them die. It makes them sticky, and they stick together, they clump together. They can cause blockages in small blood vessels in the brain, which causes mini brain bleeds, right? I've talked about how MS is considered a vascular disorder. There's lots of research on that, and this can really explain why MS would be a vascular disorder. So there's a lot. I'm not going to go into the research about malaria and MS because, again, that's like 5 or 6 blog posts. You'll be blown away with all of that information. So we now have a drug that kills parasites, that kills malaria, for example. And we have tons of data that malaria is one of the parasites linked to multiple sclerosis. Plus, we also show how, histamine is part of our immune system's response to pathogens. It's a signaling molecule. It's helping to orchestrate this war to keep us alive. Right? That is the whole point. We have to have our immune system. And when we destroy our B cells or T cells, we are more susceptible to different types of infections, different types of parasites that will actually make us really sick. So MS is not an immune system issue. Our immune system has not gone rogue. It is our body, our immune system is fighting infections. So I'm not going to even go into I've got tons of research about the small filarial worms that Dr. Alan McDonald found in the central nervous system of every MS subject tested. He also found the tapeworm larvae. He found developing tapeworms. He found Borrelia in MS, central nervous system. He found Borrelia in the myelin sheath of MS. So, and there's this huge history of studies where they found fungus in the central nervous system, in brain cells, even in the nucleus of brain cells in multiple sclerosis patients, all listed on livediseasefree.com under research. Go to the main page and click down the menu bar and look at research. There's studies there. My blog posts, I've got one, just do Google search, Live Disease Free, MS is an infectious disease. I've got hyperlinks there. I created a document, a PDF that you can share with practitioners. Please share this. Share it with groups, share it with people. I have students every week that are finding me that are they've never heard that infections cause MS, and I knew this 35 years ago. That's how hidden all of this is. So all of that are on many different posts that I have on our blog posts on Live Disease Free, but you can even just Google search. You can actually see the worms that our students are passing as they're recovering. You can do roundworms and Live Disease Free, flukes and Live Disease Free. Just be where you'll be seeing worms, but it's so educational and it's so exciting to think there's actually a reason that I feel like I'm dying. Yes, it is infections. It's not just worms, but definitely worms are a big part of it. So this study is really helping to unvillainize histamine, showing how it is really an important part of our immune system's response to these infections, and how if we just treat the infections, then the histamine levels will go back to normal. They won't be too high in the brain. They won't be too low anywhere else. They'll just be back to normal. And how maybe we should not be just focusing on suppressing our immune cells and really dealing with histamine, when in fact it's necessary for helping to heal the body. Now, the next thing I wanted to share with you is it's painful, but it's something that some of you may have, if you've been following me for a while, I've shared this before, but this is a perfect topic to bring this in. So probably at least 5 years ago or more, I came across research by this medical doctor in the United States in the 1950s and 1960s. And what he was doing, he heard through another doctor that this one researcher or doctor was giving MS patients histamine injections and having really amazing results with that. So this is like giving them more. So remember, they said that the histamine in the blood is a little lower, so increasing the histamine in the blood. And they were finding like life-changing improvements with MS by giving them histamine. So he started to do this work, and he started to get, like, people were desperate and they're like suffering so terribly. And so he tried it with one person, and that person had tremendous, so he's not saying it's a cure, but that person had MS, she just did so incredibly well. Like, I haven't read the book recently. This is the book, actually. It is not published. It's not being published anymore. My Fight to Conquer Multiple Sclerosis by Dr. Hilton Jonez, Jonez. So this book is out of print. I am in Canada. I had to drive down to the US border to buy this book. I see that in the front of it, it says that originally it was worth $3.50. I paid $200 for this book because I knew that there were some really important keys in this book, and I wanted like information, insights, wisdom, and I wanted to study it. So, and then as I was studying that, I found another doctor. So this first Dr. Jonez was an American doctor, and then this is a doctor in Canada. And I think this was published around 2003. And this doctor was not working with MS, but he was really helping people that had asthma and allergies, giving them in the histamine also, and having like complete reversals of asthma and allergies. And people were just so grateful. Like, he got shut down in Canada, and he would not stop because it was helping people. He wasn't hurting anyone, and he wanted to help people, so he kept doing it, and they took his medical license away. And I think he went to court, and they actually had lots of patients that came to his court case, and they were trying to plead to have everything dropped and for him to be able to continue to help patients, but of course not. So like, it was almost like probably at that time that the certain companies felt, well, we can sell histamine therapy, and that could like basically make people symptom free, or we could just keep them on the antihistamines. Like if you have allergies and parasites, we can just keep them on antihistamines for years and years and years. And also, when you don't treat parasites, then we can sell our immunosuppressive drugs, which now are like over $100,000 a year in the United States. Many of the newer drugs, they're all the same. They're targeting your B cells, they're targeting your T cells. They're making us sick and weak. So it is quite awful. But I wanted to read like from Dr. Jonez's book with respect to multiple sclerosis. Again, this is his book. It's a really great read if you can find it. It's like a gold nugget. It's something that, will be really helpful for other forward-thinking practitioners to be able to read, but it's, again, not in print, and there are just a few copies. You have to try to find them. I think I found it maybe on Amazon or on just one of those online places. But I wanted to share with you like just a little forward in his book, or a little description. So So these miracles, so he first started just treating people, and then so many people were coming because it's word of mouth. It's like, oh my gosh, look at you. You look like you're healed. Okay, I want to go do it too. So he had so many people coming to him that this St. Joseph's Hospital in Tacoma, Washington, they had to open up, it's a Catholic hospital, and the nuns opened up a whole section of the hospital for his patients so that they could come in and have histamine treatment. They'd get an injection of histamine, like an IV injection of histamine. And this is what it wrote in the book. So, miracles that began at St. Joseph's Hospital: blind were made to see, the crippled to walk, and the dying to live again. Here is victory that is something more than a triumph of science. The story of Dr. Jonas, like the stories of Pasteur, the researcher that pasteurized milk, and others, is a thrilling account of conflict against bigotry and selfishness and false conservation in medicine. So what happened with Dr. Jonas is there were so many people coming for help, and even like they didn't have enough room in the hospital, so they opened up a wing in a hotel for like different rooms that patients could go in. And people would literally be like so disabled, they'd come in stretchers, and then they'd walk out after a few treatments of histamine. Like, how awful is that? I mean, it was good for them, but could you imagine if they were getting these like injections and it was helping that much, and then it was taken away from them, and the parasites were not treated well, and maybe they didn't get enough histamine treatments, etc. So like, how brutal for them, for all of us that follow, just awful. And so he battled but I think he stepped down and he said, I want to keep my license. I want to keep my reputation. He knew he wasn't going to be able to get anywhere with it, so he just backed down. It is one of history's most selfless crusaders. Dr. Jonas took no money for his treatment. So he helped all these people and took no money. But more importantly, he takes no credit for it. That he gives to the man who has experience with this strange, untried histamine and the exotic and dangerous curative. So like basically they're saying like, he didn't take any money. He treated all these people. What a saint, right? He's totally a saint. And then he wanted to just, I shouldn't say he wanted to keep his reputation. I should say that he probably was forced to, and he didn't have any option, but he had to shut it down. Government regulatory bodies. And so it says, but all who read his book will know that the greatness that is within Dr. Jonah himself, a man who risked his professional reputation and his future as a physician on a desperate hunch, a change that has pitifully small, but like it was a very, very small, but it was a hunch, a very small hunch. And he helped 300,000 hopeless victims of multiple sclerosis. So he did treat a lot of patients. Like, why would that not have been a study, right? Why would they not be interested to say, why are all these people having such life-changing experiences? He didn't kill anyone. He didn't hurt anyone. So why? Like, these are just one of the things that were shut down. And same with that doctor in Canada that was using histamine to treat asthma and allergies. So Dr. Jonas did not claim that he discovered a cure. Rather, he said it was like a treatment similar to what you would do for diabetes. And it was fantastically successful. It was a fantastically successful method for making it possible for a patient to live a fully and complete, beautiful life without pain or menace of death, even though the patient had one of man's most deadliest diseases known until a century before he worked on this. And he said, unnamed until recently, undefeated until now. So I don't know. What do you guys think of that? Let me know what you think. It's really hard because I work with people every day and I just hear their struggles and I hear how much they suffer. And when all of this stuff is blatantly buried and these doctors are shut down. And it's like, why? If you're not hurting anyone and if it's really helping, why would we not be interested in seeing? So like when I read these books and I found out all this information, I just dug and dug and dug. And I was like, is there any way that we could get histamine therapy for our MS students? Is there any way they can get it? And no, it's completely sewn up. Not that I'm aware of, but this is where, pharmacists maybe practitioners that hear this, maybe in certain countries, they have more freedoms to be looking into this. There was or is a doctor who was diagnosed with MS, and I don't know if she worked with Dr. Jonas, probably not, but they created this cream. So instead of like an IV or an injection of histamine, they would use this cream, and I can't remember what the cream name is, but that too was shut down. So there's no way to do histamine therapy. We're just finding that newer research. That one study I shared is a 2022 research. This is why I've revived this topic. But, in recovery, in order to recover when we're really infested, that there are really important things to consider. Like, how do we help the body with this out of control inflammation? So when we have this ongoing parasitic infestation, there's an H1 pathway and it's overregulated. And this is the pro-inflammatory pathway. And if there was a little bit of extra histamine, then that could be going into the H2 pathway, which is the immune modulatory pathway. So then that would help to bring that balance between inflammation and modulation. And then if there's not like over excessive inflammation, then the body can heal itself more quickly too. And we've talked about many other things. Make sure, if you haven't seen the topic about last week, I talked about plasmalogens, which is like a nutrient. It's a fat that is 70% of it is found in the central nervous system, but is also really important in heart health, in the cardiovascular, but also for treating cancer. And how when we're deficient in that and we bring it back because it's used to create myelin, that it can really help to heal our nerves when we're dealing with all of this damage and injury to the myelin of nerves. Also, just know that I am working with that group. I've shared all of their contact information in that last video, but I will have a link where you will be able to get a discount. I'm working on that right now, and I will have more information about plasmalogens. I'm going to talk more about the science of them because they do have a couple of products, and how do you know which one's better for you and how much to take. Again, it's nutrition. It's not going to treat the parasites, but if we can, number one, support the body, so correcting nutritional deficiencies, decreasing food to the parasites. This is what we do in the Live Disease-Free plan. We follow the Live Disease-Free diet. So we're decreasing their favorite food significantly so they're more quiet. We support the body through correcting nutritional deficiencies, decreasing the toxicity produced by these parasites, opening up detox pathways, making sure we're sleeping well. So we're really feeling a lot better before we start treating. And then we develop a treatment plan based on a student's their health history, the health history of their parents, any types of symptoms they're dealing with, their diagnoses, energy test results, and the types of worms they're passing by doing oxygen type enemas. So that's how we build a plan. So then as you're treating the infections, like you've already helped to modulate the immune system, you're treating the infections, you're also correcting imbalances that these infections treat or cause, I should say. So you're correcting imbalances that these infections cause. And then of course we're doing healthy lifestyle and we're being active, we're doing all these other things, but all of this together is what helps us to recover more quickly. You can't just treat parasites. You can't just take nutritional supplements to fill in what's missing. You've got to do the whole package as far as, regulating the inflammation, because these parasites are pervasive in people that have chronic disease. Our students are passing typically hundreds of worms, hundreds. And you might say, no, not me. Well, who knows? Because it's pretty darn common. So they're passing hundreds of worms, and that's what we can see. There's many things we can't see: the protozoa, the bacteria, the fungus, and the small microscopic, like filarial worms. We can't see them. So really understanding what we're dealing with as far as the level of parasitic infestation. So again, really understanding what we're dealing with, that level of parasitic infestation, and also how pervasive they are, how hardy they are, how challenging they are to treat, and understanding, like trying to figure out which treatments will be best for us because there are no good stool tests. And then, really supporting our body before we start treating, using that holistic approach to recover. This is where miracles happen. So yes, maybe histamine, having that injections would be helpful in treating the parasites because there would be less of an immune reaction, right? Because it's going to help the immune modulatory part of the immune system. But all those other parts, if you want to recover, if you want to be like a normal person again, not having to possibly rely on histamine injections ongoing, which we don't have access to at this time. But I'm really hoping if there's some researchers that could go in that direction and follow up with this and go deeper and find therapies or bring forward therapies, bring forward studies. Again, there's no money in that. Like, who's going to pay for a study to do this because there's no money? Whereas the MS drugs, these recycled old drugs that they use a new purpose for, they're like over $100,000 a year for many of them, which is brutal. There's no financial incentive to find a cure for multiple sclerosis or any other disease for that matter. So again, these are two hero doctors that their work, I'm trying to keep their work alive because they're just like forward-thinking practitioners. Again, helping 300,000 patients and not taking any money, not asking them to pay for it. There's not many doctors that can afford to do that. Maybe there's some that would like to do that, but they can't afford it. Let's see what you guys think about all of this. So hi, Phil. They're hiding the fact that that all are chronically deficient, same as vitamin D. Geoengineering is next, noting geoengineering you get next to nothing from the sun. Yeah, so with the geoengineering, shouldn't even say that term because it's very highly censored. But basically, they're dimming the sun. Whoever gave them permission, I have no idea. What they're putting in our air, I have no idea. And I know that it's bad because there are some people that have tested it, credible doctors that I know of. So we're not getting enough sunshine because of the dimming of the sun. But also, these parasites make us deficient in vitamin D and iron and other nutrients. They cause, same with plasmalogens, they make us deficient in plasmalogens, sometimes for different reasons. So Phil, you said your legs quit hurting at 10,000 international units per day. So high doses of vitamin D acts like a steroid. So if you took a steroid, your legs would also stop hurting. But what is your goal, Phil? Is your goal to just take high doses of vitamin D for as long as you can, and maybe there's some adverse effects in time? It's not a cure. It's like acting as an anti-inflammatory, but your immune system, like, take the pressure off it, treat the root cause, then just get some natural vitamin D from sun, not in the heat of the day. You can still get vitamin D from sun. And then also just, if you want to supplement, our students will do like 2,000 to 3,000 international units, and that is completely safe. Hi, Matthew. Hi, Anthony. You have a question about synthetic parasite treatments. So since DMSO is one of the most powerful transdermal carriers known, capable of penetrating the skin, the blood-brain barrier, and even cellular membranes, would it be possible and even potentially effective to combine parasite drugs or herbal compounds with DMSO to increase their reach? So there are some practitioners that do recommend DMSO. You have to know what you're doing though, because it can really amplify, certain treatments. Whenever somebody is treating parasites, if you go to a health food store and you buy a blend of herbs, that is, as long as you check with your pharmacist that it's not going to interact with medications you're taking, and your doctor knows, like, if you have any kind of conditions that would interact negatively with those herbs like black walnut, cloves, and wormwood, it's fine to take that. It's not going to cure you of multiple sclerosis, though. That's the problem. So when you want to use a combination of parasite drugs and herbs, and also the oxygen therapies, and potentially with some practitioners, they might use DMSO in certain cases, then you have to work with somebody, because there are thousands and thousands of people right now that are desperate and they're winging it and they're trying different medications. They can hurt themselves, or they make the parasites resistant to these treatments. Then they won't be able to use them in the future. And I can guarantee you that, taking like 1 or 2 parasite drugs is not going to cure you of multiple sclerosis. If there was something that simple, I would write a book about it, but every single person we work with is an individualized plan. They're using at least 3 to 5 parasite drugs, plus herbs, plus the oxidizing agent, all strategically as tolerated, and that's how they're getting the results. And so what is your goal? Is your goal to just try to do it as cheaply as possible and spend the next 2 or 3 years messing around and hopefully not hurting yourself and then going to treat properly, but then you're more disabled? Or is it like, no, I can see how complex this is. I need to work with a practitioner or work with Pam or somebody that has a plan, a proven plan that integrates all of it safely, that helps people to really play that active role. Once you learn that skill and you've recovered, then you really understand these parasite drugs. You understand dosages, you understand how they work in the body. And in many countries, then you can actually order them and you can use them safely. But when you have never done that before, like you're not going to use it effectively enough, and hopefully you won't hurt yourself. But with DMSO, our students don't use that because it's something that, like number one, some parasite drugs will treat larvae, the immature form, some will treat adults. So it's more like that. We use fat to help bring the parasite drugs that will cross the blood-brain barrier to be more distributed throughout the central nervous system, etc. All right. So some parasites can evade treatments by hiding deep in tissues. But again, that is where, number one, you have to use a multi-pronged approach, right? That is the key. And then number two, the DMSO is something, again, and even the treatments, you've got to work with somebody. But we have had people recovering and not using DMSO, so it is not essential. What are your thoughts on safely, reliable on this approach, especially with herbs like wormwood, cloves, and pharmaceuticals? Again, I answered your question, so I'm sure that will be helpful for you. Colleen, is hydroxychloroquine a malaria drug that will help MS? So the problem with hydroxychloroquine is that our students might get energy tested on it, and if they test really well and they have changes in their red blood cells and they have the night sweats and they have a lot of symptoms of malaria babesia, and then they also test well for hydroxychloroquine, they usually don't use it because it's not a cure. Hydroxychloroquine has pretty significant adverse effects if you use it in high dosages. You have to make sure you're monitored by your doctor to make sure you don't get retinal tears. But it's just like helping us to kind of go, okay, blood work is consistent. I'm testing well for even artemisinin and hydroxychloroquine. All of these things, I've got the symptoms of malaria babesia. I've got the blood work of it. I've got the energy test results of it. So then they will use other things. So that oxidizing agent is really effective they've been treating, or they did treat malaria in the past. The Red Cross did. They were shut down because it's too cheap. It's pennies. And they want to use the malaria vaccines, right, in Africa. But just one dose, they were not able to pick up malaria in the subsequent blood test the next day. So it can be incredibly helpful. So you're very, very welcome. It almost makes you wonder about bee sting therapy and multiple sclerosis. Maybe that gets the histamines up in the body. Totally, it totally could be. So bee sting therapy can be helpful for MS, but again, it's not treating the root cause. It's helping us to manage the symptoms. So it's not very much fun stinging yourself with bees, although I know that some of the doctors that I study under, they use it even on themselves with other conditions and on themselves. But I personally, if you can treat the parasites, why not do it that way? And then you don't have to go through the pain, like number one, buying the bees and then having them sting you. And it's painful. It's not, but it is interesting. And I have followed that. Okay, I'm going to let you guys go. There's still a couple more questions. I hope that you found this really helpful. Again, it's all, what I'm sharing with you is I'm sharing all the steps. Like I have not in this call, I share some of the steps in general, but if you watch my masterclass training, you'll have a detailed account of all the steps we take to recover from multiple sclerosis. That link will be below this video or above this video. And so that's the masterclass training. I share everything. But I mean, when you're starting to treat with the parasite drugs and like combining it all together, you really have to work with somebody. So then you look for a practitioner, and if you can't find somebody who is willing or knowledgeable to help you treat parasites, then make sure to fill out that form at the bottom of my masterclass training, and there you can actually book a time to chat with me and see if it's a good fit. We're going to send you a link to the Coachathon, which goes a lot more in detail into the whole process of recovery, so that you'll have really good questions for me, so that when we meet, I kind of look at your health history, I understand what you've been through, where you're at, your questions you have about the process, and then you can see if it's a good fit for you. And we have people joining. We had 4 people join last week. We've just talked with a couple of people today that are going to join too, some more tomorrow. So like it's really neat because there's people that are like farther along in recovery, and then there's people that join and they're like at the bottom and they're just starting, and then they get inspired by the people that are recovering. They hear the amazing successes of them and they're like, oh my gosh, I hope that's me. And of course it will be if they follow instructions. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing of people pulling each other out of the pit of multiple sclerosis. And then hopefully in time we can give this research about histamine therapy to different practitioners, and then hopefully they start to challenge our standard of care. They start to challenge the McDonald criteria so that we can actually work towards a cure, working towards treating the cause, which is chronic infections in the body, and then recovering, right? We don't want to maintain the drugs, this life that we have. We don't want to just slow it down. We want our life back. And that is possible if you treat the root cause, and that is only possible when you treat the infections that cause multiple sclerosis and cause the inflammation and cause the histamine, etc., all of these disruptions. So with that, I will be back next week. And if you enjoy what I share with you, please like, share, and subscribe. It really does help get more eyes on this content, and that really helps to bring change. You have no idea who will be looking at this and how it will impact their life, or how it'll impact their like curiosity to possibly start talking about this with practitioners and start to do research. Anyhow, I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next week. Take care and bye-bye for now.